Welcome to Implicating the Real. Today's show is part 2 of the conversation began in the previous episode. Let's get right into it. Hope you enjoy.
Do you want to talk about the Arab?
Let me get one thought out before we get there, because Seth is talking about like the people that do help these things, and he says they have to train a lot because they can get caught up in the hallucination, and that they're in trouble, and someone else has to like go on there and wake them up from the hallucination. I thought that was interesting. So the Arab, is a specific example.
Yeah, for an example of like this sort of like afterlife play. This is one that like Seth himself was like an actor in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Seth was playing the role of Moses.
Starts out here. At one time in your terms, I myself acted as such a guide. As in a sleep state, Rupert now follows the same road. The situation is rather tricky from the guide's viewpoint, for psychologically, utmost discretion must be used. And then, he goes on to say, like, one's man Moses, as I discovered, may not be another man's Moses. I have served as a rather credible Moses on several occasions, and once, though this is hard to believe, to an Arab. Do you remember the bullet points here?
So there's this Arab guy during the Crusades.
Gets killed, like, horribly.
Gets killed, and he's in...
Tortured and killed.
He's in Istanbul, right? But he has these sort of, like, interestingly warped views of his own religion, which I think a lot of people end up having. Right?
Yeah, I think it's like an insecurity, right? Like, he secretly wonders if Moses isn't more powerful than
Allah.
Than Allah.
But he's not talking about, like, God or, like, Yahweh. He's specifically talking about Moses. And Seth points this out, like, Seth's like, okay, cool, I'll be like the other God. And he's like, oh no, to this guy, psychologically, Moses is the figure of, like, power.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting too, why it wasn't God but like, I'm assuming at that time for a lot of people, Moses was served as that image, right?
Yeah, or just like this guy's own particular psychology for whatever reason. It's like Moses is like this guy that he's like worried is like the real, like figure. So then they have to play out this like epic battle between Allah and Moses.
So
right?
he's having a dilemma in his own version of Pascal's wager almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just like hell or not hell. It's like this version of a saintly figure and this version of a saintly figure.
And it's like, which one is going to be more powerful? And if I choose the wrong one and that one and the other one ends up being the most powerful one, then I'm going to be punished by that, Yeah.
And like how seriously people are taking these beliefs when they're like killing each other and like torturing each other in actual physical life over them.
Right. I guess that's like good, important context, right? Is like he's coming from a life where people are like literally murdering each other over this.
Like Seth says this person died by getting hot coals stuffed down their throat.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
I wanted to mention here about the man. He could not rid himself of the idea of force, though he had died by force, and nothing could persuade him to accept any kind of peace or contentment or any rest until some kind of battle was wrought between Allah and Moses. And it's interesting because I just realized he has a belief that force is important. Like, he believes in it. And that's literally how he manifested and created his life and death, because he died to the Crusades, the Crusaders. So he really thought that Moses was more powerful in life, and that's probably why he died the way he did.
That's another great point. It's not only the strong belief in, these religious figures, but it's the strong belief in the way things need to, like, might makes right kind of thing. Like, and we have a lot of that belief going on still today. I mean, wars have been happening throughout our history. And I think that belief is always behind there.
Yeah.
Among others.
Yeah. So he's dead, but at this point he like needs to like have a lot more sort of runway to get all of that out of his system before he can move on.
Yeah. So like, as I mentioned earlier, some people are, have the same beliefs, but they're just not as strong. So in the afterlife, someone can kind of just come up to him and say like, hey, you thought this, but look, it's this way. This guy needs a lot more to get to their point.
So don't worry, listener. We have a happy ending to the story. In the end, Moses and Allah meet up and they swap trinkets,
Yep.
and then
It's like a tablet and a sword or something.
yeah, they switch a tablet for a sword, and then they all join hands and say, "We are the sun.
No, they say we are one.
We are one." Yeah,
And then they merge into the sun.
and they merge into the sun. And all their millions of followers they were getting ready for this big battle, all join together and become one group of people.
I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds like a super cheesy scene from a movie, but it's what this guy needed.
I told you, dude, it's an anime.
Seth does say, he says, now while I tell this story humorously, you must understand that the man's believed what it about. And so to set him free, we worked it through. And then later he says, only after these opposite beliefs were dealt with could they explain to him his situation. He might have been a little too stubborn or freaked out beforehand to really be ready for the death orientation everybody gets.
Right.
You know, I think about this as a writer and as a person who is trying to understand why our culture is so obsessed with superheroes. And I think I've maybe talked to you about this, Joe, off the podcast, but I watched the movie Lincoln and I was like amazed at the persuasive power this person had. He had to get all these people that thought very differently to get on board with like ending slavery. And the movie just does a great job. I don't know like how accurate it is, but like this is a superpower in my mind. Reaching someone, compelling them. It's not like a manipulation. It's like presenting, it's articulating the truth in a way that compels them to change their mind. And that's the power that a writer seeks, right? Like you want to like express, whether it's through art or just, you know, like nonfiction, you want to compel them. And like, this is what's happening with this person after death. And like, to think like how you have to go to this length to reach this person that he's talking about, this Arab, like we probably don't have the power to do that in this life, you know, like as that person's living, to try to reach that person and reason with that person or to change their mind about something. Like that just, I just wanted to like illustrate like how challenging it is for us, you know, like we're like a few days away as we record this from, you know, a presidential election in 2024. I've been spending a lot of time trying to like understand how so many people think this way and so many people think this way. And I just want to point that out to like acknowledge the challenges that we live with, you know, when I think it just shows like when it takes this level of like reality manipulation to like get through to somebody, I think we can give ourselves a little bit of a break when we come up short.
Yeah. I think it is really important to remember that like Jane and Rob are approaching this as artists, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like what they do with a lot of their life. So it's like, it seems kind of like an important point, you know, that there is this sort of reflection of that same process, like you're saying, like in real life. You know, like I think about how, you know, they talk about this as if it's sort of like a stage play. And it's like, I think a lot of times, like if you put on a really good show, it does sort of feel like this kind of thing where you've done this like domain expansion, you know, and you're like, boom, this space is no longer part of the same reality that you came from. Like this is a new reality.
Yeah.
And we're going to contain it for a small period of time so that you can experience a different type of world, you know,
Yeah.
while you're here kind of thing.
It also brings to mind, I believe this is a Sethian idea. I don't know if he says it explicitly, but like your ability to do the greatest good in the world is by actually following your own passion. This appeals to me as, you know, I feel like a lot of people get dismissed as being like too individualistic, but like in that sense where like you're presented with some art that just like shifts your total perspective in this way that other ways can't. But like I always think of the extreme examples, but like, and I'm sure I've said this already too, but like if Paul McCartney or John Lennon decided they're just going to like help people, they're going to join the Peace Corps or whatever, they wouldn't have nearly had the impact they did by just like following their passion, you know, like playing in Moscow or wherever they did. And like, just like that is very encouraging to me that like this world is built on the idea that if we each follow our passions, it all fits together like this beautiful puzzle, and we all help each other. Like the maximum good of the world comes from people like following their heart.
Unless your heart tells, if it tells you to shove coals down someone's throat, maybe don't do that.
Yeah, but is that coming from art, or is that coming from people like actually following their heart? I would argue it's the opposite. Sorry, I feel like I'm getting a little preachy.
Hey man, we have a podcast. That's what we're supposed to do. People come here for us to preach.
I got a microphone and a soapbox.
If you want to, look, listener, if you want to preach something, go get your own microphone.
Does that kind of cover the Arab episode? That was the gist of it. We hinted at it in previous episodes.
I was just very excited to, we let up. We finally delivered. That was the story of the Arab.
I'm familiar enough with this chapter that to me by now that's like the most boring part of the chapter. I want to go back to a quote a couple pages earlier. Your own motives will be crystal clear. You will react to this clearness, however, in your own way. You will not be automatically wise if you're not so before, but neither will there be a way to hide from your own feelings, emotions, or motives. Whether or not you accept inferior motives in yourself or learn from them is still up to you. The opportunities for growth and development are very rich, however, and the learning methods at your disposal very effective. You examine the fabric of the existence you have left, and you learn to understand how your experiences were the result of your own thoughts and emotions and how these affected others. Until this examination is through, you are not yet aware of the larger portions of your own identity. When you realize the significance and meaning of the life you have just left, then you are ready for conscious knowledge of your other existences. You become aware then of an expanded awareness that what you are begins to include what you have been in other lives, and you begin to make plans for your next physical existence if you decide upon one. You can instead enter another level of reality and then return to a physical existence if you choose. I like that this idea that like it's like a feature of this physical life that we have this ability to lie to each other and to ourselves. And he's like, that bill comes up, so be ready for that.
That sounds like a hard part.
Yeah, I think so. But like I also love like how all of these things Seth is saying, like, you can work on this stuff now if you want to. If you want to make it easier on yourself, you can start, practicing these things. Like, your own psychological development can happen right now.
That's something I wanted to ask of both of you guys, because you're sort of like in the like Sethian camp for like a kind of extended period of time at this point. Like, what do you imagine will happen once like you guys reach that point of death? Like, do you think there's going to be like a big play, or do you think it's going to be one of those things where someone just shows up and they're like, hey buddy, like it's exactly what you thought it was?
Good.
I've been reading a lot of near-death experiences since I was like a teenager. So in case the listener is not aware, near-death experiences are recounts of what has happened or what a person has witnessed when they either flatline or basically they die and are resuscitated. Sometimes people will have some memory. Sometimes they don't. When they do have a memory, though, near-death experiences almost always share similar characteristics across cultures and across religions that really strongly align with what Seth is saying in this chapter. And even after Seth has like allowed me to peek behind the curtain, I still do expect something like that. Even though like I remember as a teenager reading about some near-death experiences where Americans would die and they would meet the Virgin Mary or Jesus, and then later on they realize, okay, this is not Jesus, this is just all that is. And sometimes they're even told by like angels, we're not actually angels, and they stopped appearing as winged figures and they just appear as like a luminous sphere, and they're just like, that's just a costume we wear to make it easier for you, but this is like how it really is. You're sent here to learn how to love others and how to interact with others, but it's not your time yet, so go back. There's a lot of similarities. I do still expect that, probably because I live in America and most of the near-death experiences I read about are like that. But I'm not Christian, I'm not Catholic. But I would like to see even my fake dead pets and friends when I pass. Like, I would like that, but I would probably immediately ask, like, all right, are you really her, or are you just faking it? 'Cause
Yeah.
I want to know.
Are you just on the ground pretending to be a dog right now?
Yeah, right? Yeah. But I do expect, like, the life review and all that stuff. But I don't think that I would be freaked out. I don't think I would really fight it, which a lot of people, some people who have NDEs will fight it because they're like, oh no, my children, what are they going to do without me? But some people are like, I love my children, but it's so great here. I don't want to go back. Is that bad?
They're like, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I expect that, I don't know, if it's happening this way and I'm like, by the time I die, I'm still like deep into this stuff, which I have no foresight to think that it'll be any different. Like, I'm not imagining that I'm going to come across like another body of knowledge that like totally like eclipses Seth in a sense. But I imagine it's going to be intense and in a good way. It's going to be like, I feel like it's going to be like waking up on Christmas morning, kind of. You know, like it's that feeling of like you're so excited just to wake up to this day. That's how I feel like it's going to be. And I think we've maybe talked about this before on the podcast, but like Seth talks about like some people are on their last physical life, and I just get the sense that I might be one of those people. And he says for them, I think it's easier. Died several times before, probably.
Yeah, you just kind of show up and you're shaking hands and you're like, hey, everybody, I'm back.
Yeah. I mean, I think the harder part might be just like facing down like an illness or whatever it is that's like whatever my awareness, my physical awareness is of my coming death might be a little more challenging. But even then, I feel like I'm not too like, I don't know, I guess like nostalgic in that sense, or like, but time will tell, I guess.
Yeah.
This is going to make me sound really nerdy. You know how there's some kids who, like, after a test will immediately go look up if they got a question right? And then be like, damn. Like,
Yeah.
God damn it. I look forward to dying so I can find out what I majorly fucked up. Because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I apply this fairly well. Like, almost every day I'm talking to my friends. Like, am I doing this right? Or, like, you know, this is probably the way we're doing, but correct me if I'm wrong. Like, you know, I'm really interested in knowing the truth and finding out what my mistakes are. So I'm like looking forward to that, essentially, peeking at the answer book and being like, all right, I'm pretty familiar with the material. I teach it to others. What did I fuck up? You know, so I can have that facepalm moment of being like, God damn it, Liana, like, you idiot. I'm really looking forward to that.
Right, because if we're like on this probability spectrum of all the different possible lives we could be on, you got to be like, okay, well, like, where on the percentile did I land?
Yeah.
That's my score?
Right. Yeah, and like I want to peek into the other probable Lianas that were like wildly successful by this Liana's like standards and be like, okay, what did I do there? Oh my, it's so obvious. Why didn't I see that?
Yeah, it's like,
I'm really excited for that.
you were supposed to have just taken that sick day, man, and you were going to meet this person, and then their whole life trajectory would have been different, and you were just went to work anyways.
Yep.
I'm also curious if there's be like a temptation to be one of those people like they don't need to go back to physical life, but now like they really got it down. Like I keep going back to like the video game analogy, but like now you know, like I can just like dominate this thing. I go back. Like dominate's the wrong word.
No, I understand what you mean because sometimes I wonder if I am that person. And I'm like, am I the kindergartner that got like left back twice? And I'm just here and I'm still fucking it up. This is literally a question I ask my friends like once a month.
Like, did I get held back in reincarnation
Yeah.
school?
Like, am I actually an idiot?
But I'm not so sure that I would make that choice to come back. Like I see the way my life has developed in recent years in a very good way that like oftentimes my dilemmas are choices between two great things. And it's a beautiful place to be in. And I think that's kind of going to be, you know, what that position is too.
Yeah.
The beautiful part, I guess, is like once you develop multidimensionally, it's not just a this or that situation. Like I can choose to have all these lives, you know. That probably would tip the scales for me. Like, okay, I'm going to advance rather than going back, because that's kind of what he said at the end here is like, if you decide upon one, you can instead enter another level of reality and then return to physical existence if you choose. I think that broadening of reality also includes like dipping back, just maybe in a less like immersive way. Like, because you're going to have awareness of other existences at the same time.
Yeah, catch me coming back as like a cloud for like 2 minutes.
Cloud, tree. I mean, why not have all the experiences too? Like, I feel like that's part of my DNA, or whatever the psychic equivalent would be.
Microwaves.
I don't know. Everything. Either of you guys read Robert Monroe? You know him? He's considered by some like the godfather of like astral projection, but like he is very proficient at it apparently, and he wrote about his experiences, and like towards the end, like he was kind of like visiting this like human society that was like completely evolved. They could just like manifest whatever food in their hand and like they'd give it to him. And like he, in this world that he was just visiting and astral projection, he like was able to like species jump. So like he was like a fish, and then like he jumped in the air, and then the eagle swooped down and grabbed it, and then he became the eagle. And I mean, whether it's true or not, like just painting this experience that like you can just like have all these different experiences. Like I look at the wide variety of life in this world, and it's like that's just consciousness having a different experience. It's pretty cool.
Sometimes when on the internet you're just scrolling, sometimes when you learn about some like really weird animal, I'll be like, man, some ridiculously wise entity chose to incarnate as this like weird freaking monkey thing.
Yeah. Well, and we've touched on this too, but like the whole Frank Watts thing where like, Seth is talking about like you have to like account for yourself at the end of the life. Like what was Seth lacking that he had to come back as Frank Watts? Oh, humility.
He said specifically he came back as Frank Watts to learn humility because Frank Watts was what was the word he used?
Oh, it was
fathead, which was slang for someone who was stupid. No one says that anymore.
So he was just a little too high on himself, and he needed to cut himself down a notch. Interesting. See, that's another thing is like when you hear that, like you're like, oh, I could actually just work on my humility now, then I won't have to live a whole life as a Frank Watts. I'm sure there's other benefits to it too, but
to me, the whole thing sort of feels like when you get done, another big nerd moment, like when you get done with a D&D campaign, plotting out your next character. Because like there is something to the idea of like the whole arc of someone's story being about a theme.
Yeah.
And being able to have that really fresh like space, like a blank canvas to be like, I want the theme of this person to just be entirely different,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's like you could work on humility in your current life, but it's like your current life narrative might just not even be about that,
Yeah. I'm just saying like to devote a whole life just to humility or primarily to humility is, I don't know if I'm like looking for that. Like you can have any life and develop your humility, right?
Mm-hmm. But imagine being like getting to go back and just be like a monk and just hang out in a monastery your entire life and just be like, nah, it's just chilling, just gardening, baking bread, making beer.
I mean, I think it's cool that that you do have this like D&D part of your life. So, like I think it's very apt, like because you're always from this position of like that entity level, right? You're like deciding who am I going to be? What's going to happen to them?
It's just a play and a play and a play, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I think like when I see things like that and like the video game analogies or movie analogies that we often use, like I think it just further cements the idea that this is the way it is. Like, because we're intuiting that, I think, and we're interested in that. And like, we're acting this way because, like we're like children emulating their parents in some sense. Like we're playing reality. And we're not even like totally conscious of the ways that we're playing reality, like the higher lessons that we're getting. It's cool. So any more highlights?
I guess We sort of already talked about this idea, but I was just like curious about this whole like mass religion thing. Because it struck me as like kind of interesting. The idea of like there being this really useful quality to having like a mass religion that like is sort of propagated throughout a society.
Mm-hmm.
And like whether you guys thought like our current society could use something like that more than it currently has. Or if you think like, have we just like progressed past the point of even like needing that?
I think our current society is already too burdened by it.
Okay.
I think we're beyond anything monoculture. I guess we do, I don't know. I feel like it is going to be more of a general spiritual thing that we're moving towards, like these ideas, I think.
Mm.
And I do see like these ideas like slowly taking hold, and you know, we've touched on it too, just like in everything everywhere all at once, or just like anything like these, just the amount of people talking about the, what do they call it, the simulation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that word sounds weird to me right now. I don't like the term, but I think the emotional strength of people adopting and talking about this idea comes from a growing awareness of these sorts of things. You know, like, I don't like the word simulation because it implies that it's like fake, and it also connects to like physical computing in a lot of people's minds, that like it's like literally like the Matrix, or like something's plugged into the back of your head in another reality, where I think it's much more obviously true that it's just like psychological.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, like simulation captures a lot less accurately what you could capture with maybe like that reality is like a hologram, right? Like it's a simpler dimension that's being projected into a more complicated dimension.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. And Seth, I mean, he talks a lot in this chapter, saying that these after-death plays or whatever, like, are hallucinations. And they're very individualized, specific hallucinations. But the implication also is there, like, in physical reality, we're sharing a hallucination. We're agreeing to, like, agree on the hallucination. And he goes out of his way to say that, like, it doesn't make it not real. It's still a real, intense, valid experience. That's a very interesting point to me, that it's like we're using the word hallucination in the same way we like kind of dissect death, but like hallucination kind of unfortunately has this connotation that it's not real. But like the experience is real, and it gets you to real intuitions. And that's on a broader level, that's like this whole physical reality is too.
Yeah. I guess my thing is like, it seems like Seth's coming from the perspective that like having this like massively propagated like system of sort of symbols is like very useful for like your afterlife thing, where it's like it's spooky season right now, listener. So we've been watching spooky movies, and the one that I was watching last night, like we talked a little bit about how like it's interesting that in America we have this sort of like fixation with horror movies about Catholicism, even though like most Americans that are Christian aren't Catholic, and how like the iconography of it is just like so much a part of the genre, and how there's like this sort of like universal language like inside of the symbology, and how that's like more emotionally captivating sometimes, you know?
That's interesting. Yeah. Do you think like other forms of Christianity are just like symbolically blander or something? That's why it often ends up being Catholicism that's depicted?
I don't know. I feel like it might be a bit of like Orientalism, right? Where it's like Catholicism is seen as like similar, but like foreign enough that it's kind of can be this like
It's
sort
more
of
exotic.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's otherized.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never thought about that, but that's a good point.
Yeah. But like, yeah, the idea that like if you don't have these like shared symbols, then it's like, what do you do after you know, like they have to show up and sort of like interrogate you and be like, what do you want? Like, what do you need to get, you know, before you can be happy?
Yeah, although I don't think it's like actual verbal interrogation. I think there's some level of like psychic skill they have to like tap into your mindset and just go from there. But like Seth was saying in his Arab incident, that he didn't know until the last second which form he was going to take between like Moses and Allah.
Right. Yeah, where like that person is almost acting as like a director in that sense, where they're like making calls sort of like on the fly of like what's happening.
I think he even mentioned that that Seth shouted out to Jehovah, but the man didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
And Seth was probably like, oh, okay. I have to continue to improvise.
He's like, oh, fuck, we're ad-libbing a shit.
Yeah, it does make you wonder, like, yeah, what do they have to go by, and why is it limited in that sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as far as the mass religion thing, I think, yeah, he's saying, like, the utility of it is that people had, like, common symbols to communicate higher ideas with, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, as we all acknowledge, there's a lot of there's some negatives that come along with these mass religions too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Arab can tell you all about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting question because, I don't know, I feel like the modern day person that like identifies as spiritual but not religious just like doesn't have a body of work like this to like hang on to and like resonate with. I don't know if a lot of people just lack the curiosity to just keep like looking. You know, there's a lot of ideas out there, but like I feel like most people are more content than I am just to like not have answers in the way like a religion has answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At the same time, the fact that like most people seem to have like similarly decent morals and ideas about things like is encouraging to me, that like that is just like connected. Like that's just part of like the internal intuition part of being human. Like you don't need it prescribed from the outside to like know what's good and bad.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Some people believe that though. I had a former in-law who was, just basically like couldn't understand like how I could be a moral person because I didn't have organized religion in my life.
Right.
And that made me wonder about you. Like, that's all that's holding you together? Like,
yeah, you're telling on yourself right now, man.
Yeah. This is a quote, kind of touches on what I was saying earlier. Remember that in one way, your physical existence is the result of mass hallucination. Vast gulfs exist between one man's reality and another's. After death, experience has as much organization, highly intricate and involved as you know now. You have your own private hallucinations now, only you do not realize what they are. I think he's getting to the point there that like we're sharing this reality, but like our subjective experiences are vastly different, which also makes sense. We're different people, different perspectives. The aforementioned political divide that I was referencing, you know, people are just totally different places in some things. It's kind of interesting.
Did you have anything about this guy that shows up at the end? John something?
Not really. Do you?
I just thought it was really funny that he shows up, but then they don't even talk about his questions because they must have just been really boring.
I wonder if sometimes they separate these sessions and they include the personal stuff elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if the questions are somewhere else.
I know there was the part about the ESP class. I went and read that in the appendix. And that sort of covered a lot of the stuff that I feel like we talked about in like the early episodes, you know, with the couch and like perception and reality and that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just like a cool overview. Like it's referenced in this chapter. It wasn't like specifically about death.
No, I think that's just like that same night is when the ESP classes happened. But then like Rob says that they're relevant. I don't know how relevant they were.
Seth jokes like, you would not be caught dead with your consciousness outside of your body. It is taboo. Now the fact is that your consciousness is not imprisoned within your body, but as long as you believe that it is, again, you will not be caught dead outside of it. And when you are caught dead outside of it, there will be some amazement indeed. He's just kind of
being silly
there. I like the parts of this appendix that he actually made. He was a little more explicit about some things, like root assumptions is a term that Seth uses. And he's basically saying root assumptions are those laws upon which you agree in any system of reality.
Mm-hmm.
I always find it interesting when he's talking about root assumptions. And also psychological time, which I often am like, feel like he leaves so ambiguous. He kind of just basically states generally that, that it is ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
He says, now there are many words for psychological time. I do not mean my method of meditation alone. I do mean subjective activity on your own part and exploration. So he's often prescribing psychological time rather than like these strict modes of meditation like that I've gone through. He's like, you don't need to follow this one path or this path, but like basically intentfully following your subjective experience is a very good practice.
Practicing like awareness and presentness, basically.
Yeah, I think he's often prescribing like you just lay down for 20 minutes and just like follow where your awareness goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the sense you're kind of more or less just like daydreaming or having dreams.
I get the impression that he just doesn't want you focused on a physical task.
Mm.
And also just acknowledging like how often this is happening. Like meditation is basically becoming aware of your own mental processes, right? It's trying to like take a step back and just like observe what's happening. And it's shocking how that experience illuminates, how much that we're not aware of, that we do experience. There's one other thing a quote that I just resonated with when I first came across it. True spirituality is a thing of joy and of the earth and has nothing to do with fake adult dignity. It has nothing to do with long words and sorrowful faces. It has to do with the dance of consciousness that is within you and with the sense of spiritual adventure that is within your hearts. I never connected what was turning me off about certain veins of spiritual people, but that term fake adult dignity, I was like, oh yeah, that's the part that I want to distance myself from.
Right.
But yeah, it just has a way of putting it poetically that just nails it sometimes. Did we do it? You guys is there anything else that we want to touch on this chapter?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Thought for sure we would bloviate, but I think we just got right to it, maybe.
Oh yeah, we just gave a big summary real fast. There'll be more time to talk about death. Don't worry, we can get morbid.
I don't think it's not going anywhere.
That's our show, but fear not, the never-ending conversation continues next week. If you're enjoying the show, please be so kind as to subscribe, rate, and review, and if you're feeling frisky, tell a friend. Contact us at implicatingthereal@gmail.com. You can support the show at patreon.com/implicatingthereal. We are doing our best, but whatever support you can lend helps us appreciably. We are not affiliated with the publishers or proprietors, but we encourage you to get the books. You can follow along as we endeavor to dive deep into the Sethian worldview, and there's really nothing like cultivating your own relationship with the material. Until next week, we wish you a fond good evening.